All right, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Trustee Pierce.
Present.
Trustee Mason. Here. Trustee Peterson is absent. Trustee Bluthart.
Here.
Trustee Berman.
Here.
Trustee Dominiac.
Here.
Mayor Gartner.
Present. All right. I'm beginning to learn that Antioch is the cheerleading capital of Northern Lake County. We had other cheerleaders here last week, so I see we have a good pipeline for the cheerleaders here. So thank you for coming. The first group that we are going to recognize tonight is the Antioch Vikings Pee Wee Cheer. They came in second place at the state championship with a score of 80.33. They had 3 first place wins at the competition throughout the season. The head coach is Elizabeth Wilson. Where's Elizabeth? Hello. And then there's assistant coaches Heather Wickert, Amanda Rivera, and Jessica Lipinski. Are they all here? All right, there they are. All right. So, and you guys are that group's in 4th grade. Is that about all 4th graders? Okay. So if you're here from that group, we stand up and come up front. Oh, look, let's see your trophy.
Wow.
Wow. Do you guys share that? You can take it home for a night. All right. So I had other cheerleaders here last week, and they after they took their pictures, look at the man over there taking pictures, and the coaches come up here too. Get it? Yeah. All right, everyone smile big. All right, don't go anywhere. So before you go, you have to do your favorite cheer, the best cheer that you guys can do. Okay, so you gotta do it. Yeah,
Pressure's on.
yep. Come on, a lot of pressure here. You did it in front of a lot more people than this. All right. Yeah. All right. Yep. Give yourself room so you don't smack each other. All right.
No joining in with this.
Yeah. All right. Congratulations. I expect to see everybody back here next year too. All right. We have another group here.
Last thing. Yeah, these are too young.
All right. These are the old Vikings cheerleaders. These are the 7th and 8th graders. Huh? All right. So these are, we also have the Antioch Viking varsity cheer 2nd place champions. The Antioch Viking varsity cheer had a 2nd place with 90.6, so a very good score. 3 first place wins and a 2nd place win at competitions. Head coach is Alyssa Frankie. Is she here? Oh, you're behind the pole. There you are. All right. There you are. And the assistant coach is Kelly Sheehan. Kelly? Not here. All right. So 7th and 8th graders. I have a daughter in 7th grade, so I know you probably don't want to come up here because you're too cool now, but we're going to make you come up here and do a cheer. So why don't you guys come up here and take some pictures and bring your trophy.
Too cool, not cool. Too cool for school.
Yeah. All right. So Jim Moran is the guy over there in the sport coat. He takes pictures for the village.
Here we go, guys.
All right.
I feel like Fetterman with this
Yeah.
thing after I'm cold.
It's a hoodie.
Huh?
That's a hoodie.
Yeah, it's a look. I'm
All right.
Fetterman.
All right. So you guys have to come up with a cheer too. We're not going to let you go before you. All right.
Yeah.
I can't. Who's leading this? Yeah. Holy four. Yeah.
So many decisions.
I know.
It's a short time.
All right. Y'all ready? All right. Yep.
We're getting choreography.
Yeah. All right. Wait. Before you can't go yet. On is it? Oh, we're still. All right. You're still going. All right. All right. Great job. Hold on. And then I have been told that there is somebody who has a birthday today. Who has a birthday today? Who has a birthday? All right. Where are you?
Come on up.
All right. All right. Let's see how good everybody can sing. All right. 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to you.
This is on YouTube.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Lizzie. Happy birthday to you. All right. All right. Thank you for coming. And this is your chance to escape having to sit through any of the more of the meeting, as when we get into the more serious things. You're always welcome to stay, but if you want to go, I'll give you a minute or two to gather your stuff and be able to leave. All right. Thank you.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Bye. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Here's the address.
All right. Thank you. See you next year.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
You guys are on YouTube.
Congratulations.
For the 900th.
Yep.
They have their own channel.
What is that? Oh, I know.
All right. Thank you. Drive safe.
Happened last meeting too. And there's no one.
Yeah.
3 people. Next time, let's trick them and say they are gonna do it at the end. They're gonna
Make it right.
All right. Thank you. Have a good night. Paul probably never thought he'd see this much cheerleading at a village board meeting, huh? Yeah. All right. Citizens wishing to address the board. Lori has the list. She'll go over the ground rules and we'll open up just make sure you're speaking into the microphone here up in front.
The opportunity to speak to the board is provided for members of the public who have a comment to make about the business of the board. The board appreciates hearing from stakeholders and values your thoughts and questions. The board strives to make the best decisions for the village, and public input is very helpful. The board must protect the civility and decorum of this meeting. Please be respectful for the duties of the board and the democratic process in your comments tonight. Please state your name and address your comments to the board. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Please be factual and courteous, and the board requests that you not make statements that are personally disrespectful or condescending to members of the board or staff. To the extent multiple speakers are addressing a single issue, the mayor reserves the right to limit the number of speakers making public comment of a repetitive nature and or limit the amount of time for public comment. The board does not respond to comments or attempt to answer questions during the public comment period. I think you can do it with the remote. First, we have Carmen Marinu.
Wait.
Sorry.
Carmen.
My name is Carmen Mariniuk. I've been a resident for a while. I thought it was a pretty low point for the board to allow members of the community to come up here and bash Katrina, village trustee, with things that had nothing to do with the village, even though it's clearly stated in the statement. After seeing a letter posted on this blog that has been mentally abusing our trustee for almost a year, that this board put out pretty much looked like you were trying to take away her First Amendment right as a parent. I think that trumps any position. I'm sorry. I'm a parent. Most of you are parents, if not all. That trumps any position. So if you had a dispute with something that was going on as a parent at the school and you went to address it, and now a blog has been bashing you, verbally abusing you, mentally abusing you for almost a year, and now starting to attack other community members, and they are starting to comment about my workplace. They are now starting to comment about other members of your community about personal matters. That's not okay. This is going on. And now that letter, they publicly posted, and then all of a sudden it was removed, taken down the bottom part so nobody can see what members signed it. So nobody wants to know who this person is. The village attorney can't find out where the IP address comes from this person that is now attacking members of the community. We don't even know if this person lives in Illinois, let alone in our community. They say so, but it's anonymous. That letter was shameful on this board to take away her right as a parent because it had nothing to do with village business. Thank you.
No. All right. All right, we have 2 items on the consent agenda. Is there any request to remove either of those items? If not, I'd entertain a motion in a second.
So move.
Motion trustee Dominiac, second trustee Bluthart. Roll call, please.
Pierce,
Aye.
Mason,
Yes.
Luther,
Yes.
Berman,
Yes.
Dominiac.
Yes.
5 voting yes, motion carries. 1 item on regular business tonight, which is the consideration and approval of payments of accounts payable as prepared by staff in the amount of $1,148,698.82. Do I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Motion trustee Bluthart,
Second.
second trustee Berman. Any discussion?
Oh, I thought he was gonna. The fence isn't on there, is it? I looked, I didn't see it. Okay, thank you.
Roll call, please.
Pierce,
Aye.
Mason,
Yes.
Peterson, I'm sorry, Luther,
Yes.
Berman,
Yes.
Dominiac.
Yes.
5 voting yes, motion carries. Next item, administrators report. Any report? All right, village clerk, any report? Any trustee reports?
I have one.
All right, trustee Berman?
Oh, skipped over me.
Well, I'll come back and we can,
It's
yeah, we'll jump around.
Go ahead.
We'll come back. We'll get your
Let trustee Mesa go.
trustee Masek, you want to go first?
Well, the trustee report, the only thing is on that fence, I've had so many people calling me, and this would be to the village administrator, is that level? From the eyesight, the west is higher, and when you look down, the top parts don't look level to the eye. So if you put a string on it, I don't think it's level. And that's, I'm getting a lot of people from eyesight when you're sitting at Dunkin' Donuts, you're sitting here drinking your coffee, you go, there ain't no way that's level from the tips of it. It can't be an optical illusion from the ground. So you got to get Yeah, you gotta get Public Works out there to put a string, probably the simplest way is put a string up there. From one end to the other end, see if it's level. And they can report back next meeting.
Anything else? This side?
No, I gotta go executive session.
Okay.
Sort of stuff.
Trustee Bourbon?
Okay. I'd like to request that this trustee report be entered into the meeting minutes verbatim, along with the letter that was sent to me back in December. I'd also like to request that I be allowed to read my speech in its entirety, as it is in response to the letter that was sent by the majority of the village board. Your letter states that a majority of the village board feel that the current battle has gone on too long and costs the village too much money. This is not and should not be village business, and it could have been stopped. This could have been stopped immediately by stating so the first time it was brought up before the board. Your inaction is the only reason this has gone on this long at village board meetings. To my knowledge, discussion regarding this letter never occurred during a village board meeting, meaning discussion never took place in front of the public. I do believe that's an open meetings violation. How and when exactly did this discussion take place? Who was present during this discussion? And before I receive any answers from anybody later on, I would like to remind everybody that the 2+2 meetings circumvent the Open Meetings Act, and the appearance of secret meetings should also be avoided at all costs. I'd like to know exactly how much money the village has diverted to this non-village business. What is the exact amount? Then I'd like to know what that amount was specifically spent on. Was this board provided official documentation by District 34 stating a breakdown of costs incurred by District 34? We are separate taxing bodies. Therefore, the village would have had to request this information from District 34. Did the board make statements of fact without proper documented proof? I am a duly elected board member with the same rights and privileges as you. I have worn my title of mother since the day I found out I was pregnant. That title is worn 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's a title that I will always fight to protect, whether this board wants to acknowledge it or not. This board has no right to infringe on my parental rights or my private rights. Each member of this board has one vote and one vote only, and that one vote can only be exercised at this dais in this boardroom. Our elected duties only exist inside this boardroom, not outside of it. I have been and continue to be well within my rights as a parent and private citizen. My right to protect my child from those who do harm. That is my right until my child reaches adulthood and can protect himself. The title of mother supersedes all titles, period. This board does not have the authority to tell me when my title of mother can be used, or that my elected title supersedes my title as mother. Not once have I crossed the line between parent duties and elected duties, and that is a fact. If I believe that a village ordinance has been violated, not only do I have the right to question it, it is my duty as an elected official to question it. I question the book Genderqueer being in the D117 library because I believe that it violated village code. When I was finally informed by the village attorney that in fact it was not a violation because our school districts are separate taxing bodies, the conversation discussion as an elected official stopped there. I was well within my right to question this as an elected official, regardless of public opinion. Hearsay is not fact. It's obvious that this letter stems from hearsay and bullying, not facts. What other statement can I make other than the fact that I have always taken these actions as a parent and a private citizen? Being elected to my trustee position does not negate the facts that I've stated, and it does not remove my rights to act in this position. Not only did the District 34 school board president reach out to the mayor during the summer of 2021, she also reached out to individual trustees to complain about me voicing my concerns to the district as a mother. Those initial calls from the D34 school board president should have been met with, "I'm sorry, but this is not village business," period. End of story. Is there a requirement for elected officials that I'm unaware of that states that I must give up the ability to voice my opinion or fact on social media? Does this board understand that I want public with my concerns because the District 34 school board president's first response to me pulled in my elected position into something that had nothing to do with my elected position? You should, because I did tell you guys this. This letter states that there is no way this board can or will stop the relentless harassment, mental abuse, and the discussion of non-village business during public comment. The most telling part of that statement, or will. The village is concerned about my safety? Really? Is this why the village has allowed this relentless harassment and mental abuse and discussion of non-village business for over 9 months now? Is this why the village has ignored the fact that I filed for a restraining order against a former elected school board member? Is this the reason, or is this why the village has ignored the fact that I had an official letter excusing my absence from a meeting last month? I told our village attorney that I would provide both documents to the village as proof, but instead I was advised not to send them. Is this why the mayor felt the need to tell me back in 2021 that he felt that the school board president had it out for me and placed a target on my back? After the meeting that he attended because the District 34 school board president demanded that meeting? That's what this board calls concern for my safety. That's not concern. That's ignoring the facts and hope that this will be brushed under the rug. Actions against me have been based on nothing but hearsay, demands, threats, and bullying, not due process. Your solution was silencing me and adding a timer to public comment, but I'm sorry, that timer is not a solution to this issue. The letter also states the village hopes resources, taxpayer dollars, personal and professional time will stop being diverted from our daily tasks because of this. It also states that I'm the only one who can stop this from continuing. I'm the only one? The village had the power to stop this before it even started by simply stating that this was not village business, but you didn't. Instead, you fell prey to the relentless demands and threats made by a small majority. Why? All the village had to do was make a public statement at the board meeting at which this first occurred. You knew they were coming, you saw it on social media, and you had plenty of time to properly prepare. You didn't. If necessary, this public statement should have been repeated at every meeting thereafter. You didn't. 5 simple words. This is not village business. It's really that easy. Village staff should have been instructed that they are not to engage in any discussion of non-village business on village time or on the taxpayer dollar. This board refuses to take a stand on important issues facing our town. Now, unless I'm missing something, not only in regards to being in regards to the well-being of our children, but also to public safety. I'd like to know what happened to the resolution opposing the Safety Act. I initiated discussion on the Safety Act last month during my trustee report. It was discussed at great length at our strategic planning session, and the decision was made that the village would place this resolution before the board. That's not a waste of tax time, or that's not a waste of time. That's not a waste of my time. Is that not a waste of village resources, taxpayer dollars, and professional time? If this board was so concerned with being fiscally responsible, why was the board presented with a $500,000 gazebo imported from Italy? Why would this board ever even entertain the idea that if they're so concerned with fiscal responsibility? And I'm sorry, but that price tag is deceitful. Since this board has allowed non-village business discussion to occur for the last 2 years, I'd like to take this opportunity to ask the mayor and trustees if they actually support and promote these harmful ideological theories in our schools and in the town of which they govern. This board owes our town a public statement against these harmful ideological theories being forced on our children in town. If you won't make this public statement, why won't you? You, not I, made this village business. If these harmful theories are not present in our schools, this board would have no problem making this public statement. If children of this town are in fact being subjected to these harmful theories, it is your duty to our children to speak out against it. If this board and the village administrator truly want the village of Antioch to be a destination, the biggest draw is an exceptional school system where all are welcome. My fight as a concerned private citizen is not damaging the village's reputation. This board's inaction is damaging this town's and my reputation. The school districts are damaging their own reputations as well as this town's and mine. If what I've stated as a private citizen is not true, why has the school already spent and continues to spend so much money on people and companies promoting these harmful theories? Confronting and voicing our concerns to the D34 and D117 school board, documentation and sound proof have proven that parents in this town can't get anywhere with them. They refuse to listen, and they have discriminated against certain citizens of Antioch. They've made it clear that they will not stop at anything. They will stop at nothing to silence anyone with opposing views, even if it means ruining reputations and lives. That's not democracy.
Right. There's a request to put this in the record verbatim. Is there any objection by the trustees to put this in the record verbatim?
No.
Okay. No objection. All right. Any other trustee matters, reports? If not, we will entertain a motion to adjourn the regular business meeting and then move into the cow meeting. Looks like on time for once, so, okay.
Move to adjourn.
Motion trustee Dominiac,
Second.
second trustee Bluthart, roll call, please.
Pierce,
Aye.
Mason,
Yes.
Luther,
Yes.
Berman,
Yes.
Dominion.
Yes.
5 voting yes, motion carries. Meeting's adjourned at 6:56. We will resume roughly at 7 o'clock. So anyone that's here to
Smoke if you got 'em.
on 10 the cow can be here. So, all right, 5-minute recess. Call the meeting to order at 7:05 PM. The committee, of the whole meeting, roll call, please.
Trustee Pierce,
Aye.
trustee Mason,
Here.
trustee Peterson is absent, trustee Luther,
Here.
trustee Berman,
Here.
trustee Dominion,
Here.
Mayor Gardner.
Present. First item on the agenda is, again, it says approval of the November 30th, 2022 minutes. It's actually approval of the January 11th, 2023 committee of the whole meeting minutes as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve with the change to stating the January 11th, 2023 committee of the whole meeting.
Motion trustee Bluthart, do I have a second?
What are we changing?
I'll second that.
The date's wrong on
In
that.
the agenda, the date's wrong.
All right, motion trustee Bluthart, second trustee Dominiac. Roll call, please.
Pierce,
Aye.
Mason,
Yes.
Luther,
Yes.
Berman,
Yes.
Dominion,
Yes.
5 voting yes, motion carries. I forgot earlier in my mayoral report. I am now on as a director of the Lake County Municipal League, and they asked me to announce the trustees or staff that want to go to the 2023 legislative breakfast called Eggs and Issues, Saturday, February 4th. It's from 9 to 10:30 at Kemper Lakes Golf Course. So if you're interested in going to that event, it's local, federal and state officials will be there to answer questions of any villages or interested parties. So that's on February 4th at Kemper Lakes. All right, next on the agenda. Oh, it's from, yes, it check-ins at 8:30. It's from 9 to 10:30 AM.
The long drive from there.
We have regular business tonight. We have consideration of a Class J BYOB license to be located at 906 Main Street. I believe we have the petitioner here, Agnes Velakis, I maybe pronounce it wrong, present to answer any questions. So I did see this was in the packet regarding her art business on Main Street. So if you have any questions of the applicant, she's here tonight. So I'll start down here with trustee Pierce or trustee Masick. Do you have any questions about this item?
no questions.
All right.
Pretty
Yeah.
straightforward.
I'm trying to figure out, so you're getting alcohol.
Okay, my name is Agna Valitskas. Business owner of Art and Boutique Center, and I am willing to get a bring your own bottle license. And I've been doing, parties in people's houses, like for more than 12 years. I used to go like in the cafeterias and bars and, do art. I did like.
Right, I understand that.
Yeah, and I now got my space and I am willing to do this here. And I know Antioch doesn't have a place like that. And most of the small towns do have. So I wish I could be the first one who can, do
So, okay, are you going just in your place or outside your place?
just my place and,
You're charging people to come in?
yes, for,
Okay, that makes sense. Now I know why. Okay.
for art and, then they can bring their own.
Right. No.
Sip and paint or something like.
Yeah,
No, I understand. So they, all our BYOBs, they carry liquor license, right? Because,
They have a BYOB.
BYOB like.
yeah, but
Class J.
insurance, I'm talking insurance.
Yeah, they can
And
show
on
that.
file.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions over here? Trustee Bluthart, trustee Berman, trustee Dominiac?
I don't have any questions about the petition, but I do have questions about the terms of the license, but we can take that up at another time.
The length?
The license terms.
Okay.
It says in here that no licensee nor any employee or staff member of the licensee is permitted to open and or pour the wine or beer. When this first was put in place, it was at the request of the former tea shop, Infinity. And we used to bring bottles in there for when we had dinner, and they said they had to open it. So why,
There are two,
Of course.
Please.
You're the authority of.
there are two BYOB licenses in our code right
Okay.
now. One is for restaurants, which would have applied to Infinity, and that's in the section 4-6 of the village code under
Okay.
restaurant licensing. The other BYOB was created a few years ago for a similar
for the
concept.
nail salon?
No, it was for a similar concept that never opened across from the movie theater that wanted to open a painting set in art gallery, and they wanted to have a BYOB license. So it was added to the code at that time. Since then, we have given a BYOB to a nail salon. Drive Time Golf had one. Love and Oven had one, and that's for non-restaurant BYOB.
Okay,
So
thanks
that's
for
the
that clarification. Yeah, I don't have any questions about this.
All right, so, yeah, so we'll put this on the agenda for our next meeting to vote on the license. But all right, thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you.
All right, see you in 2 weeks if you are here. All right, thank you. Next item is discussion regarding pavilion at the future downtown park property located at Main Depot. This probably be a discussion, so will this be led by Administrator Kine?
Thank you, Your Honor. So we're going to kind of take a step back and recap a little where we've been with the project.
You
Am I-
You need to speak up.
Yeah, a little bit.
Sorry. We're just going to take a little step back and kind of recap where we've been with the project, share with you where we are today with the project and different elements of the project, and give you an idea of where we're going next. So right now, we're currently at the 75% level. And we're just going Kevin has a presentation prepared to kind of get everybody, comfortable with where we've been and where we're at and where we're going. So Kevin, you want to come up? Kevin Clark from McCullough.
You're at the 75% level of planning.
We're at the 75% design. Okay. So consider this rounding third headed home. At concept, we were probably going by first base. At design development, probably rounding second. Now we're rounding third headed for home. The 25% left of the design effort will be finalizing the bid documents and the construction documents. So things are fairly detailed at this point. So we thought it'd be a good time to just lay everything out. And the goal here is to make sure everybody's comfortable with where we're at in this project and where we're going with it. Changes are still possible. They just get more difficult and more complicated and more expensive. Moving forward to the design level we're going into. So it's a good time to kind of just recap it and see where we're at and see if, there's any questions, comments, concerns. And we're going to kind of focus on, the design, the main design elements in the park. Okay. And kind of update the board as well. There's some things that have evolved since you've last seen the renderings and I think the last time the full board saw it was at the design development when we approved the design development. So Kevin.
Thank you, everyone. I'm actually joined by Mike Jensen from Strand, who's the engineer. They're civil engineers and structural engineers on the project. Been working on our team, and Andy Dogan from Williams Architects. Want to talk a little bit about the FA building that we've been working toward on the project. And as Jim, after our last meeting, I think we regrouped to just figure that we should step back a second and just talk a little bit about the process, talk about where we've been and where we are now, to give you a chance to look at all of the elements. Our steering committee has seen these things and seen the formation of them, but wanted to get this in front of you as we move forward, so you feel comfortable with where it is. Not easy.
I'm sorry, is there a way to move that screen in the Zoom screen and make that full screen? Because it's hard to see.
The menu on the right, Kevin, if you click that.
Oh,
little-
sure. Sorry.
Click that little arrow. Down on the bu- Yeah, we're,
Okay. Is that better?
And move the Zooms off of there.
Up here?
Thank you.
Okay. I wanted to start here. February of last year was when I presented the final downtown beautification plan in front of the board, and that was really the impetus of this project. And we didn't know it going in, right? We were looking at everything. We were looking at Main Street. We were looking at all of the streetscapes. We were looking at, the band shell area, and thinking about improvements. And as we started that process, the first thing we do, and always, is talking to folks. And we started talking to folks about the vacant property. At the time, everyone called it Pittman property. We kind of wanted to just start calling it the vacant property because people saw that as a huge opportunity. And just having a conversation about it with people, I wanted to understand what people's visions were. And from there, we started to just, ask questions about, well, what do you mean this is a big opportunity? And we just include a couple quotes here. People say like a village square that includes green space, shaded areas, small entertainment space that could bring people downtown. They saw this as being a huge boon to what could happen on Main Street. And I agree. It's pretty much a blank slate, but there's a lot that's happening there, right? And so a little bit it was about, hey, we've got to talk about the creek that's underneath in a culvert right now and what that could be. What's the potential here? So as part of this process, everything starts out broad, right? We did a bunch of concepts, right? Ideas, sketches. These are my sketches, hand-drawn sketches, because people told us what they wanted to see. We developed a program for it, right? Everything from music pavilion to cafe space to splash pads, bridges. We knew we had to have bridges, features, open lawns, place for events, tents. These are the things people are telling me. So we developed a program, came up with a bunch of different ideas. That's when we brought it out. That's when I was at the wine walk. That's when we had people with other images, because we showed visual preference. And we had a survey that was on our project website that we created. Hey, what do you think about these things? What do you like best? People were giving us stickers and they were weighing in on different items that they wanted to see and like, right? So from there, we narrowed it down and refined into a design. And this is the design, the schematic design that was in the final downtown beautification plan that was approved by the board. And all the elements that are here at a higher level, of course, special event space, playground places for kids, a creek walk with bridges, plentiful tent locations, pop-up markets for events, and a variety of spaces for seating, dining, and gathering. That was what we were showing here, what we talked about, what we presented. And at that meeting, I got feedback, right? We got feedback from you guys, good feedback, because the next level of this was, hey, we want to go into, because what came out of the wash was this was priority project number one, not Main Street, not, doing something on Skidmore. This was the project that people wanted to move forward with. So we, from there, this was actually part of the, in the plan. In the plan, just these are the elements that went with that vision that we presented in the vision and are in the plan. So the idea of gateways and entries from the corner, something that respects those corners, kind of protects the corners and welcomes people into the site. The idea of the stone masonry bridge, whatever that is, the idea of pavilion stage elements as a focal point feature, as kind of a secondary space to the band shell that you guys have, the bigger events, naturalized creek edge, lawn amphitheater, creek overlook areas, splash pad. We heard a lot about that. Playgrounds and a concession area, which we now call a cafe space, right? And if you have a cafe, you need bathrooms, all of those things, right? This was the plan. This was where we were. And from there, you guys gave us feedback. You said, okay, you decided to move forward with the design development of this and then into construction documents and bid documents, which is the process we're in right now. So this is where we are kind of now. This is the pretty picture of where we are now. The more refined plan after all of those months of working with the steering committee, because we kind of got released to the steering committee to have checkpoints. And then we've had a couple touch points with the village board, of course. And as we've developed this, we get more focused, right? We get more focused on the elements and what they are and the details, of course, and designing, well, if we're going to have a cafe building, what's that look like? If we're going to have a playground, what's it look like? What are the details of it? What are the pieces of equipment going into it? The pavilion, the amphitheater, and then certainly the creek walk. Now, some of the feedback that you gave us that was really helpful from the very beginning was, hey, make it feel more natural. The creek should bend a little bit, not so straight. Hey, make sure that parking on Depot is easy to get into and not we don't want to do one-way street. We had this idea of one-way street, maybe. No, we don't want to do that. So those are elements that came through from the previous version to this. But this has also been advanced now beyond that. And this is a version that we actually have a lot of details and construction documents being produced right now. So we're well within progress, as Jim mentioned, 75%. And we've got engineering for a lot of these things. And now Andy's going to talk a little bit about architecture. And that's why I wanted to get in front of you guys tonight, because there are other elements that I want to remind you that this is a holistic view. Because to me, this is the once in a generation opportunity to create something super special. And I truly believe that whatever that is and whatever that direction is, we will continue to form that. But the elements of this haven't changed from that program we talked about largely. You know, the idea of a cafe space here connecting across a bridge to a pavilion space, which could have flexible events, to an amphitheater on the south side of that connects to Skidmore when there are events that might be happening, larger village events. And then the idea of a plaza space for, you know, having that big gathering or having a big announcement or having like a holiday lighting or Christmas tree lighting at that space. Other overlook places along Orchard and Main here. So elevated vantage points to be able to see that creek that we've been hiding forever. The playground, that was another thing. You guys thought, hey, bring that in, make sure that feels inclusive of the space. And I want to talk about that. And then the idea of a splash pad here. And then as we think about the nature of this, authentic by nature is you're you know, making it feel natural, bringing that stone into it. So to me, everything's about that quality. Everything's about durability, making sure that this is, if it's a once in a lifetime, once in a generation thing that we can do, making sure that we can make it as durable as possible. So as we thought about materials, as we thought about these things, we've been, you know, picking materials like stone and thinking about how the building would relate to that. And we'll talk about it. The best playground materials we can, the best pavilion we can, the best durability for hardscapes, all of those things. Okay. So just some of the imagery that we presented to you, I've updated. These are updated a little bit just to make sure that we're showing the right light fixtures and the right materials that we are proposing. Focusing, you know, we had, if you recall, we had kind of a session where brought a couple of palettes, different bridge looks, and you guys kind of pick stuff, different paving materials, different things like that. So all of that was factored into developing this palette and coming back to the steering committee and refining so that we have one direction and one cohesive look at everything. I mean, and clearly the landscape is a huge part of that. I'm a landscape architect, so I don't want to downplay the idea that this is a park, that there is this kind of natural creek corridor and that we have native planting and we have all of those things within this framework. But making sure that we're addressing everything in a cohesive way and that it all feels good together, which I believe it does right now, but we continue to refine that. Just other views of that. You know, this is looking west on the north side as we look toward kind of the playground on the west, and you know, just thinking about how it will look at night, how we'll have lighting and specialty lighting, maybe hanging lights next to the cafe space. So if you have some kind of event that's in the early evening or something in the summer, it feels activated. And that we're thinking about uplighting in the trees and lighting on the bridge. And so that when you drive by, that's the space. That's what we're talking about, right? our special space. And then I look at that, at the amphitheater, and to me, this is it's meant to be a flexible thing. Can be used daily, could be used just for, small gathering, or it could be kind of a larger event if you so choose. It's a focal point and it connects directly across to the north, across that bridge feature, and you can kind of see the overlook on this side at Main, and how those relate to the bridge and the stone and the veneer that we're choosing. And then we'll talk about the building in a second. Early on, as we started getting in design development, talk about having an overflow space, kind of that space next to Skidmore where a lot of people will be crossing, where we could do events, Christmas tree lighting, and then having having that connection down toward the creek, right? Having some kind of connection down, just stone steps that get you closer to the water, even though we know sometimes it'll be a really low flow situation, but we want to make sure we treat that appropriately and allow access as appropriate. I'm going to let Andy talk now. We've advanced the building finally to the point, because this was brought up last meeting as well. Really interested in seeing what the building looks like. So as Andy joined our team, we were able to start to look at and put some actual better design to it than what we had in our placeholder images. So
Can we ask, on the drawings, can we ask questions?
Oh, for sure.
Sure.
Yeah, we'll go.
Okay, my first question is the word authentic. You named it Village Green. We have a subdivision called Village Green. Are you aware of that?
we
There's
just
a
been
golf,
kinda-
hold on.
Sure.
There's a golf course. 15 minutes, Village Green Golf Course. Pleasant Prairie, Village Green Park. Authentic is the first name. Every one of those documents you have there has the word Village Green on it. The majority of this board does not, I would venture to say, does not want Village Green. We didn't agree to Village Green. So if you're printing documents with Village Green, those documents are going to be historical documents. This is what we did. Those have to be reprinted with whatever name, carts before the horse on these documents. Would they have to be reprinted? Whose cost? With whatever name is it, I suggested to go to Historical Society. Because you can't leave out the vets and the people who did it for a name. Can't name it after subdivision. Why not call it Oakland Knolls Park or Sequoia Terrace Park? You're naming it after a subdivision.
Yeah, I can address that.
You want to put this for the record, that there's a Pleasant Prairie has a Village Green right in front of their Village Hall?
So just so there's no confusion, we didn't name this. The village board certainly has the right to give this a different name. We stopped calling it the Pittman and Peace, and the design team, is calling it the Property at Main and Depot, which is kind of a mouthful. It's a green space in the village. So the design team and the steering committee, and it was talked about, I believe at the April 14th steering committee meeting, let's just give it a simple name that the design team is calling it and labeling it, but it's simply a placeholder. There was no thought or real impetus to name this anything. It was just a term that was used to describe the project.
No, but if something's gonna go into the Historical Society, these documents, that what we did 100 years ago. If we're gonna do a reprint, we can't.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
I understand.
I want a history of today, and I don't want some subdivision name on it.
It was meant to just be a generic name, so we had something to call it, as a project. It was not meant to stick. It was not meant to step on anybody's toes. There was nothing more to it than that. It was discussed. Let's call it this as a placeholder, just for simplicity's sake. If you'd like to call it something else, we could put any name. We could put Main Street Commons. We could just put Downtown Park on it. Whatever you want to call it, we'll change it. We'll make sure that the documents moving forward reflect whatever you
Well,
want.
there's people smarter than me, the Historical Society, that probably do a better job of not forgetting the people who served, the people that memorialized Antioch, who made Antioch what it is. Those are the smart people.
Yeah, I'll leave it completely in the board's purview to decide how and when they name this
Yeah,
park.
they can
But,
come up with
but don't
names.
latch on to it as any specific, effort
don't
to
wanna-
try to circumvent your right to name this park.
That's all. It started Village Green, Village Green. I just don't want an doctrine in all the documents and all of a sudden that name gets in doctrine.
Again, we will call it whatever
Yeah.
you want us to call it. We'll strike these words off of this page and we'll call it whatever you like. It really
Like,
doesn't
you know,
matter
I
to
sent
us.
An email at 12:30 at night when I couldn't sleep with the pain,
I appreciate that.
and I apologize for that.
So, again, it wasn't meant to disturb anybody or take away anyone's rights. It was simply to simplify how project team people were referring to the project. So if you'd like to give it a different name or have us, just call it the property at Main and Depot, we'll do whatever you like.
Yeah,
All right, Kevin, you guys were about to go into the pavilion or not the pavilion, the cafe, yes.
All right, good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me tonight. Once again, I'm Andy Dogan from Williams Architects, one of the principals of the firm and the principal in charge of all of the projects we're fortunate to be working on with the village. If you recall, a couple months ago, you met one of our project managers, Mark Rohde, to approve our contract to do the needs assessment and planning study for the a potential village hall and public works facility. So as part of that effort, Village Administrator Keim asked us to become part of this team to put a building together for this site. And I don't mean to correct Kevin, but I know the word cafe, first of all, cafe building is a very loaded term. And what I would like to suggest is that this is not a cafe building, but a support building for the entire site that happens to include some food service elements. So we wanted to start by showing you how we've developed the floor plan. And as you see in the image behind me, I know that's a little bit unclear on the screen, that distance from you, but the green elements represent restrooms for a facility or a development of this size that could have this number of people attending and participating in the different uses. We recommend restrooms that can both be used by families and people with special needs, and then a couple larger gendered restrooms for men and women, again, to handle the number of people that could be on this site. So the majority of the square footage of this building is actually, as you can see, is devoted to restroom facilities. On the right, which is to the east, we have family restrooms that are oversized, that exceed accessibility code requirements, and that will be very convenient to the splash pad and the playground. The other side has the restrooms that will really support programs and things of that nature going on in the rest of the park and at the pavilion for performances. So that's a major component of this facility. The areas you see in purple are the support spaces. All of the utilities for this building, gas service, electric service, water service, everything serving the splash pad, electric coming out to all the different components of the site need to be routed into a protected place. And that's what this building is doing. And all of that, although that looks like a lot of space, we fill up walls pretty quickly with panels and infrastructure for those type of elements. And then in yellow, we do have the food service and concessions element of the project. We've run this by the steering committee, gotten some good commentary and feedback with respect to the size of this. Our firm has spent 40 years putting together park and recreation structures and has a depth of experience in right sizing and these types of spaces so that they can be used by a number of operators. And the intent here is not to provide a food service that competes with the downtown and other businesses, but supplements what's here on the site and provides convenience items on the site. So this concessions layout just has a very basic division of space between what we would call the service window, the space at the bottom of the plan labeled cafe, is where you'd come up to and order. You'd see some of the offerings through the window and see the menu. And then per food service best practice, we have a storage and wash area behind it with a 3-compartment sink and a hand sink, like as is required by codes, and then a dry storage. So a very practical, flexible, workable layout as part of this. So that's the plan of what I would call our more than cafe building. Now I'm going to struggle with this. So as soon as we like to make sure that we solidify the plan and make sure that the building plan meets the needs of the project before we get into exterior looks. And our goal, Kevin, is to harmonize the building with the rest of the site elements. And as Kevin mentioned, provide a facility that is going to last for generations. So using materials like brick and stone, in building the interior walls of concrete block that can take abuse and are appropriate for a public setting, rather than residential type construction is what we're looking at here. So we did some character sketches. We also looked at some materials. Again, our building materials sort of mirror the rest of the project. So we're looking to use the same stone at the base of the building to tie it into the rest of the site. From there, use some brick to really make sure that the building has a character to it that is warm and inviting and durable. We're also looking at some accents of some board and batten fiber cement to accent smaller parts of the building, and then using a synthetic slate for roofing rather than an asphalt shingle to really give it some character and again, give the building some real longevity. Instead of using materials that have a 15 or 20-year lifespan, we want to do things that are very durable and will stand the test of time. So with that, we put together just a preliminary image of the building, showing what that all looks like coming together. So this is consistent with the character sketches that Kevin and his team in Lakota have shown everybody all along. It shows how we integrate brick and stone. This happens to be the south side of the building facing the pavilion. So you can see those concession windows there and how people would come up to that. There's that little bit of patio and terrace area in front of that. One question we had before was, is there a possibility to extend the structure out so that we'd have some shelter in front of that? And we did look at that idea, but found that to get the shelter piece to a size that really was useful and had enough seating of it to be of value, we really got right up to the lower right-hand corner of that image, which is the bridge. And it started really competing with the other elements and not providing a lot of room to move around. So that's why we're not showing that in this image. It was explored, and certainly from a cost perspective, that doesn't move it in the right direction. So that's where the team is at. As Kevin mentioned, we were brought on a little later in the process. And we know that there are some images here that we're working as quickly as we can to get caught up with the rest of the team. So we'd welcome any questions or comments you have.
All right. I'm sure we're gonna have a separate, but I'll go first on this one. So couple things. One, I think that before we do anything with this building and final approval, we need to talk to potential. I anticipate or envision that this would be leased out to a third party rent vendor for, food and beverage service of some sort. And so I just want to make sure that whatever space we're designing for the restaurant portion of it or the cafe part of it is vetted by somebody saying, yeah, this is like the appropriate layout for what I would need. The other part about this that nobody's probably going to like over here is that I always said, I do not want this to be a concession stand. And this looks like a concession stand to me. It looks like a pool concession stand to me. It's not what I like. I would like to see it more an inviting look to it. I would like to see the potential of maybe having a ability to have an overhang or something that can like cover part of the area. I'd also like to see something where, like, if in the winter we had people selling coffee or hot chocolate. They could go into an enclosed space or something like, temporarily while they're ordering or whatever. So first pass, I know it's first pass, but this looks way too concession like to me, like a pool concession area. And that is not what I envisioned for this. And maybe others will agree or disagree. So yeah, so that's one of my comments. The other one relates to what Trustee Masick said, and I've always envisioned that we would have some kind of community contest of like a naming contest for this park. So I think that's something we should start thinking about as we get into the construction phase, and maybe that's something that Jim Moran and his group starts looking at with the doing what we did with the community development and picking the parts of this and come up with some naming contest. Other than that, I'll stop talking right now because I'm sure there'll be other comments from. So I'll start with Trustee Pierce.
I like what I see so far as the layout, the design work. And, I still have a lot of questions, which we're gonna probably have all during this process. When I look at the building, I'm trying to figure out what the average cost would be generically of a building this size, just so I have a frame of reference. If you were to build that today, what approximately, I'm not tying you to this, but is that a $5 million building, or is that a $1 million building, or 500,000, or?
The budget that was in place in the overall project for this building was $840,000, and we are not going to exceed that unless you tell us to.
Okay, so, all right. As you design this building here, one thing I've noticed in a lot of towns and in my travels and in my adventures, you had a lot of space dedicated towards restroom. And this is kind of not a pleasant subject, but a lot of them I go into, nothing was put in place for maintenance of them, durability of them. They smell, they're nasty, and then you go to other places and they're appealing. And one thing I've heard in Antioch is we've got restrooms by the baseball field. We've got restrooms, that you go in there and you're kind of, and you got restrooms that are never accessible except for during a special event. If we have restrooms in this area, I want them to be accessible and designed to last and be pleasant and enjoyable. It's just something that bothers me when I go in a building. It's not the most pleasant subject, but
Yeah, no, that's a great point. We've been working on these facilities for years, and we know it's using the right materials that are durable, making sure we don't have anything absorbent in the restrooms that can pick up smells, which is the #1 driver of those unpleasant experiences, and then adequate exhaust.
okay. And I agree with the mayor on, it does kind of look like a concession stand, and I don't know how you don't make it look like a concession stand, but I'm not a designer.
First of all, these are great comments. This is exactly the kind of feedback we need. You're not hurting my feelings. And it's hard when you're putting a building together that is supposed to have a food service element to it. When you're showing those windows for access, it's hard for that not to look that way, but I do understand those comments, and there are certainly things we can do to address it. This is the kind of feedback we need to come back and show you something that doesn't look as much like a concession.
Because I really kind of envision something that, you'd go to Disneyland, you'd be like, oh, this is kind of cool. This looks utilitarian.
Okay.
So I'd prefer something kind of cool. To Trustee Masick's point about honoring people who served, and naming, maybe there's a contest we can have. I know Village Green was a placeholder, but the name at some point has to be determined whether it's the right name. So a contest. Well, the Memorial Park could maybe be part of it. Maybe we open up to the public and come up with a name. But I've thought about this building a lot, and at the VFW at one point they had some sort of symbol that was on the wall that was, I can't show it to everybody, but it was kind of a flag with the five services. Now it's 6 services with the Space Force or whatever, kind of tiled in or muraled in or something on the backside of it where the street is. So when people see that, they know that, hey, we're honoring our veterans. That's a point. You got the Blue Star Memorial there. You can look and see some sort of diagram that draws in the services. The elephant in the room right now is the gazebo, the pavilion, or the structure. I did go down and look at it. It's very impressive. I don't know what size range you're looking at on the one for Antioch for $500,000. But I did go pace it out, and then I put flags down in the ground out there to kind of see what it looked like. What was down in Chicago with FIP. I don't know if it's the same size, bigger, smaller. And it concerns me at this point to get a cost of a building for $840,000 and a gazebo, a pavilion for $500,000 plus some. And you mentioned bidding. We're at the point where we're going to go out for bids for things as we come around third base and run for home. Aren't there ways to get bids on pavilions and see what other people are doing or what they can offer? So that's just my input for right now. I'll let the other people talk too.
All right, trustee Mason, and again, we'll do a loop-de-loop, so we'll go through twice. So, trustee Mason.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna agree with the mayor. I don't like this. So I'm gonna agree with his comments. I do think it looks like it belongs next to a pool. So
We put that in the record.
we'll put that in the record. It's gonna be- What's the date? Oh, the 25th. So are we missing a subcontractor on this project, or can you do the security? Because I hear all this stuff, the bathrooms and everything else. Day two, everything goes up. You're gonna have some hoodlums go down there and wreck everything nice that's gone up there. So I haven't heard anything of how we're gonna protect this with security cameras and people not sleeping in the bathrooms. So is that the architect, or are we gonna have another program placing security cameras strategically, or is that part of the building?
No, the equipment that would record and store the data for that would be in this building. There's a room off of the main storage room on the north side of the building that will hold servers for equipment and some controls and things that don't react well to dirtier environments. And it's the village vendor we've been using is Imperial. So yes, Imperial is aware of the project, and they're preparing based on location of electric and lighting and other things, you know, where the poles are going to be, that security feature, that surveillance.
I think
feature.
that's gotta be part of conversation. I gotta.
Yeah. So yeah, it's in the works.
All right. Got that down for Mike. All right.
You done? All right.
Sure.
All right. You done, trustee Mason? All right.
I think he's done.
All right.
Is it
Trustee
me?
Bluther, it's your turn.
I'm gonna have a mic drop moment. I'm gonna agree with trustee Mason.
Oh, holy cow.
And he's a pilot now. I'm just wondering where the Quick Trip logo goes on the side of that. It looks like a Quick Trip or some type of, the roof line looks like an old IHOP. I don't know what the hell that is, to be honest with you. That is the farthest thing from what I pictured on this site. And I hate to say it, but I don't know where we're going with this. I don't know where these drawings, it's not like what the drawings that I've seen during this process, not that. I mean, we're trying to make this authentic, a nature park, a nice open up greenery, and then we're building a building that looks like it would be in the drive-through window at a Quick Trip or on a car wash somewhere. It's not flowing with what I'm envisioning at this park. Now, once again, I don't know which trustee or who said it there. We're not designers. I'm not either, but I know what I like, and I know I don't like that. And when I see that, and then we see the nice stone bridge, those two don't go together. And then you go and put this taco stand with a Asian roof on it out there for a gazebo. All three of them don't go together at all. It's like a mismatch. And at this point, I don't care how long it takes. We've got to work on this till it's right. So if this delays things, it delays things. But this is not what I envisioned at all. I don't think the people in town envision this at all. And if we try selling them that building and saying, oh, it's only an $800,000 building, they'll laugh us straight out of town. That is not the way we need to go at all, in my opinion.
I appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Trustee Bourbon?
I don't, I didn't expect it to look like this. I don't think that it looks hideous, but I also don't think that it fits the cohesiveness that we've been talking about, throughout the park. I don't think that fits that. And I would like to also see an overhang, not huge overhang, but just something, just enough so that if people, come out there, they have something that they're able to go under if it happens to start sprinkling out or, raining a little bit. So.
All right.
Thank you.
Trustee Dominiac?
I'm going to take it a little bit different tactic here. How did you come to this design? What led you to design the building?
Well,
What was
we.
it about the space and
Yeah.
the area?
Is as I mentioned, we start with the plan and the site and what we need to do to make the building functional. Get a shape and a floor plan that's working. From there, we develop, we look to the rest of the site and the rest of the design to pull materials and shapes and forms into it that reflect the rest of what is happening in the site, so it is cohesive. And it sounds very clearly that it needs further development to meet your expectations. And that's the exact feedback we need to continue to develop this.
So my recommendation would be, obviously, you have to kind of go back to you have to go back to the drawing board.
Literally, yes.
To look at what else is surrounding there. We've got the school right there. And I agree with what Trustee Berman said, and he said that at the last meeting, which is why I asked for this to be presented along with the pavilion. But how does this look with the bridge and with the pavilion? So that's important. But also, we've got a historic church across the street. We've got a historic school behind it, starting to, and I'm not looking for matchy, but something that looks like it's not just been plunked down there. Can we go back to the picture, the schematic that shows the use of the building? So, to the mayor's point, and I know I brought this up when, and being a member of the steering committee, Jim, Kime and I, and you were on that call, right? Actually, Jim reached out to Bruce Faber, who's a resident here and who's in the hospitality industry, just to brainstorm with him about what kinds of things we might do here. And that, I think, drove a lot of the design of the food concession. But one of the things that I brought up at that meeting is, do we need to have two unisex family, whatever, bathrooms, and could that space be used for somehow be configured so that, to the mayor's point, if people wanted to come inside, that there would be an opportunity there. So maybe then that would help to take away that concession look where people could actually go in. I don't know. Again, you're the designer. But I think to think about, do we really need to have two of those types of bathroom facilities? Could we use that space for something else? I also agree that there should be some kind of an overhang, and it doesn't have to be a canopy or a lot of tables. I think when we had the discussion, it was something just, that has a little shaded area. Maybe you have some tables out there. And I guess the other question that I have for the rest of the board is, in the discussions that we had about what kinds of food would be provided out of the cafe part of the support building, is, the idea of being able to go and get a cup of coffee and meet some friends and sit outside, or maybe have a glass of wine or a beer. And do we want to have that available at that? And I don't know if we make that decision tonight or not, but that's something that came up in that discussion that I think would make it attractive for people that want to sit in the park arena and just visit. But I think just looking at the surrounding buildings, and again, how do you pull in the bridge and the pavilion, so that looks, that picture is nowhere near, in my estimation, what the bridge looks like and what the potential pavilion could look.
Okay.
So I appreciate your efforts, and obviously this is an iterative process.
It is an iterative process, and I truly, even though you said some things that will make me not sleep tonight, that's okay. This is my job is to get to show you alternatives and get to something that you feel is an appropriate reflection of this village. So we will continue to work on it. We need to hear this kind of honest feedback to get you to the place that you need to be. And I hope that you'll find in this process that our entire team actively listens and responds to concerns. We are getting into the project and want to make sure that it's meeting their expectations. So I appreciate the honest dialogue, and that's what will help us meet their expectations.
One more on.
Sorry, but thank you. The other thing I wanted to, well, I wasn't done.
I'll go back around. Yeah, so finish it, then we'll go back. I'll go
Yeah,
back around.
just to this discussion about what do we call it? It's a park and it's downtown. So why don't we just call it for now the downtown park? Makes it easy peasy. And, you know, I think the idea of a contest is a good one. You know, we may even be thinking, there may be people that are thinking about naming the park after the people that were here long before Antioch. So, I think that would be a great way to try and get some ideas around what to name it.
All right.
All I have at this point.
So questions for Mr. Dogan any on this end? Sure.
Yeah, I just want to go back to a couple of things. The family restrooms, I think the more the better on those. I spent several years pushing my mother-in-law who couldn't move around in a wheelchair. And when things got bad, they got bad. And you needed someplace to go to, and you couldn't wait, you know, so the more handicap accessibility, the more family rooms. Parents with kids these days like family rooms, they more than they do a generic bathroom. So I'm in favor of family rooms. That's just my reasoning why. When it comes to the pavilion versus the building, your budget on the building is $840,000. The pavilion currently is being quoted at $500,000. If it costs $1.2 million on the building and $300,000 on the pavilion, I would maybe be happier. I would understand more, because a building to me is a building, and I can see if we make it the right design, it could cost more money. Same with the pavilion. The pavilion could maybe cost more money if we got the right pavilion. I did go look at the pavilion down in Chicago. It's very impressive. It's a structure. It's a thing. But I don't know if it's the right one yet. I haven't made up my mind yet. And I have to see what cost on all these things are. That's what drives my decision. The cost and how it fits and the aesthetics of it. So, and back to the design of the support / cafe / building concession stand. It has to be memorable. And I would suggest you take a little time and research a town called Charlevoix, Michigan. I've been there one time. I remember that town. And I remember the design of their houses by Earl Young. And maybe something, I know those are houses, but maybe something that flows like that and is memorable like that. If it costs more, I'm willing to look at it. So that's just my input.
All right. Thank you. You're almost off the hot seat. Trustee Basic.
I got nothing.
All right. Trustee Bluthart.
I have just a quick thing. It ties in with something you said, but regarding the budget and how we had so much budgeted and you won't go over that. Unlike Trustee Pierce, who was on the Price is Right, this isn't the Price is Right. You get more kudos by me by staying under budget or coming in with options that value engineer these plans and get us something that's unique and different, but you don't have to go up to that line item. Those line items, you know, that we approved in that tentative budget, you know, if we keep going up to that top on each one of these, and then the issues start happening, and all of a sudden this park, which had originally when I first was elected was about a $6 million park, Went up to 8, then it was up to 10, now we're up at 11.5. Before we know it, it's gonna be $15 million and we're gonna have a quick trip and a pagoda out there. So we need to look at this, not look at that line item and go, I'm gonna spend every dime of that. If we have to, we have to. And I don't have a problem going up, like Trustee Pierce said. If we have to go up to have a better looking building there, great, but let's see that. This, I think I've seen everywhere, like I said, and I don't mean it diminished. The inside and the layout of it, I have no problem with. It's the outside just doesn't flow with what I envision over there.
That's an entirely fair comment.
Yeah.
All right, Trustee Berman,
I don't have anything else.
Trustee Dominiac.
I don't have anything else at this.
All right. I go ahead. I was going to make one comment in
Okay.
general, not directed at the building.
Okay, I wanted to make sure we captured all the feedback about the building because you hadn't seen anything yet. I will assure all of you that we've heard these comments and our marching orders are very clear, so you'll see updates that we fully expect to meet your expectations next time you see this. So I'll turn it back over to Kevin to
Okay.
talk about the rest of the project. Thanks, sir.
Kevin.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I just want to update the board on one or two things about this too, that maybe this is what Kevin's getting into. I yesterday also I went and saw the pavilion because I just wanted to see it. Right after that, we did have a call with Kevin, Jim, Neary, the contractor that proposed that bid, talked about different items, talked about specific different changes, requested some updated or revised quotes or comparisons from them. I've also requested Jim and the Lakota group or whomever would do this to take those other gazebos pavilions that were on the sheet, which we know there were maybe 6 options, and kind of give us a cost comparison so we know what we're, comparing apples to oranges or apples to apples. And I think, that would give us a better understanding of what these structures can cost. So I'm hoping to have that, by our next meeting. And we will continue to move that process forward. But I just wanted to update the board on that. We're waiting for those numbers.
Your Honor, I think that's a great idea, but when you also come back with the costs on those different palette pictures, a little bit of a description of, what they're composed of. Is it brick? Is it steel? Whatever would be helpful too.
All right.
So we're comparing.
Okay. So sorry, Kevin.
Not a problem. Just a couple more minutes. I was going to go through a couple elements that we've worked iteratively through with the steering committee that are beyond what you had seen at the design development level, as we are talking about the splash pad and then the playground. So first the splash pad. The concept behind the splash pad was to create something that related to the water and has a pattern that has a ripple effect. Okay. So as you see these kind of waves occurring in the concrete pattern and the way that all those little white circles are jets. And we thought about the idea of a skipping stone and how the water moves across this space and how it could be very playful while also having a misting effect. So it's kind of creates almost a foggy appearance and different they could do different things. So the water itself creates that energy. And the ground plane of that kind of is encapsulated in the way that we can change the concrete pattern or the color of that pattern so that it looks like ripples coming out from that skipping stone. And then kind of flowing down the hill, we have that area where we're coming down toward the creek and bringing maybe a more architectural water feature just with little bubblers. So if somebody doesn't have kids and they are, all the kids are playing in the splash pad, they can come down and sit by a feature that would be here and would be maybe just separated a little bit. It's more architectural. It'd just be a recirculating kind of pump system. And then that kind of relates down to the creek edge. That's the idea behind the splash pad feature. And, as you can see, we brought some of the stone elements kind of up around it. So we're kind of we're incorporating that. The water is such a big part of the site. So we're bringing some of that into the rest of that kind of entry area. I'm gonna have nightmares about this thing. All right. It's, I'm sitting in. A couple more slides.
Can I ask you a quick question on that?
Yeah, yes, sir.
From that,
Uh-oh.
from the drawing I remember, is there a way for someone who's walking down that path or going down that path to go through there without
Yeah.
getting wet?
You can go around it. We've talked, Mary brought that up at our meeting, so you can go around it without getting sprayed.
So
That's the question, yeah.
you don't have to go to a different sidewalk or anything else. You could walk down that same
Yeah,
path
you
to the
kinda
left or the right and go through without getting.
Yeah,
wet.
continue to the north on that side.
As long as there's somewhere.
Yeah,
you can go.
and we just have kind of a 3D representation of this. Here we go. And it's hard to portray that water. We actually have an animation that we're working with the MEP, the mechanical folks, that shows kind of how the different water elements jump through the space and kind of come up. And then that kind of misting effect, which we have some images of on the next slide. So it's really a dynamic thing. It's hard to depict in a still image.
And there's gonna be the pergola there?
Yes, that's kind of that entry point in that space.
I don't know.
And there's the idea. Was there?
The creek water or fresh water? Fresh water?
Yeah.
Treated water.
Yeah. And then just some images of like what we're talking about when we talk about kind of that misting effect of so that kind of creates that ambiance, and then kind of those arcing jets and what that looks like. And also thinking about at night, the jets themselves can have lights in them. So you can have that, you can change the colors of them different times of year. I know we talked about that in other elements as we shine lights on the bridge. You can change those so that it maybe is a holiday, different holiday or whatever, but it just gives it that extra level of design, character, and interest at different times of day. Just images. To show.
Thank you.
And then the playground. The playground concept, authentic by nature. Okay. You guys, we had this idea. You guys are in the chain of lakes. You have this great historic downtown in the chain of lakes. And as a way of celebrating that, as bringing form to this, we thought about how you're within the nature. One part of it is kind of more rectilinear. That's the play surfacing you see. The colors are all still being formed, but the idea that you have a path that comes through, that path can start to rise up to where the circle is in the back. That's actually a hill. There'd be a little bridge that connects it. So creating topography through that, the green mounds would be like moraines. The chain of lakes area would be the valleys between that. Creating interest. If you've recently taken a child to a playground, lots of mounds, lots of topography changes, that creates interest. Now, the biggest thing here that I want to say is this is going to be the most inclusive playground that you guys have anywhere. And because it's top of mind. Physically, we want to make it cognitive and sensory wise, we want all those things to be inclusive. Okay. There are a lot of elements in this, and I can only show them in pictures. It's very hard to show in a plan view of how we can do things that are tactile or sound or music or touching something, seeing something, cause effect. These are things that are elements that we select and we place in the playground. So there are a lot of different things that are happening, plus the creative imaginative part of it. Okay, because not all of it's about getting on a piece of equipment. It's about the bridge element and getting a view from above. It's about creating, if you go to the next slide, Jim, the idea that we can create these little small facades that are really simple, child-sized facades that replicate some of the buildings in town or historic buildings or the kind of things that would be here, a garage, the old bank building, so that you can kind of go behind those. And my kids would always go under a piece of equipment and sell ice cream. Well, we can have a little candy shop storefront here that could be sponsored by somebody, that could be done by a local artist. We create the framework and it happens, right? But the idea that we bring that element into it, because that's the Antioch part of it, right? And that's the downtown village part of it. So those things inspire kind of the creative play, and not just, hey, we've got some cool net climbers, which are great, but we also have that element that's unique and that you don't see in other places. And if you go, yeah, if you keep going, some of the climbing structures, a lot of these, the nets, they have elements that are coming off of them so that they're at grade level, so that kids of all abilities and ages can play with those and interact with those. So there's just a lot of thought about that. And we talked, Jim has talked to folks that are parents of kids that have physical disabilities or cognitive disabilities, and that themselves, the parents themselves, are maybe in a wheelchair, and how they try to follow their kids around, multiple kids at a playground. So we've thought about that with all of the sloping and how we get people around and creating flat portions and all of this, all of these elements. So as we've developed this, you know, the slide coming off of that mound at the end of the bridge, it has a little thing, they call it it's kind of a transfer point. So when you slide to the bottom, there's a little part that comes off perpendicular. So a kid can take a little bit more time to get off or transfer. And so there are those things that we've worked with the playground manufacturer that provides the equipment, and they have somebody who's an inclusivity expert, and kind of make sure that we're providing enough elements for everybody to make it equitable.
Can I ask a quick question, or just a comment really? I love everything you've shown me on that playground. And if you went back to that first drawing that showed like the lake or lakes and water, and is it possible, I don't know if it would work, but to do the actual chain of lakes? To mimic the lakes that we have here, but use that as the flooring, and then so that kind of incorporates our area with the chain. It has, you know, you can even put the lake names in it, whatever you want to do. But would that be something that could be looked at to see if that would work with your drawings, or?
Yeah, we can. We've actually we did that with the Great Lakes and like a compass at a nursery school in Winnetka. We've done these types of things with the port in place surface. You can do different
I just thought that would tie it in very nicely and would be.
Sure. Cool. All right. That's kind of it. We're just kind of showing some of those elements that are kind of the tactile, the sound, the touching cause effect stuff, some of the equipment, sensory things that, you know, they create almost like these enclosed areas. If a kid is overstimulated, they can go into those. So there's ways to accommodate pretty much everybody.
Hey, Kevin, I know you have like the general layout on this. How far are we into the design part? You know, I know it's 75% as far as like equipment and what we're going to order. Where are we at with that?
We have equipment selected, like generally a lot of that's
Sure.
And so when you see that plan, you see all of the, if anyone's ever looking at a playground, there's the fall zone piece around every piece of equipment, right? So that's how you lay it out within that framework. So those are the actual pieces. And we've engaged and have this, I didn't want to show the 3D model because it doesn't show the topography, and it's so confusing not to see it within that context. But
so timing wise, when would you have to order this stuff?
I'll have to get back to you on that. Jim was talking about that earlier, because typically for a project like this, you're going out to bid. Trustee Pearson, you're going out to bid for the whole thing, right? And I identified a couple items, or at least the one item that we thought we would have to get ahead of, but that may be a piece because the playground equipment right now, there's just a really long lead time, and that has to do with all kinds of factors. But so I will get back with an answer.
And I think on this, this is not meant to delay, but I think that at least this feature itself should probably be presented to like the Parks Board for their review and comment too, since it's technically is a park. So that's that's.
We did talk to Mary at our steering committee meeting, but if there's more that needs to be done, we're happy to do it.
Perfect. And then I had one other comment, Andy, I lied. I had one other comment about the building. So you know, I have residents send pictures of gazebos and buildings and all types of stuff in the last couple weeks or months. And one resident sent a picture, and again, this is not speaking for the board, but just thinking out loud. You know, we've talked about the overhang or enclosure, whatever. So one of the pictures that I did receive had kind of like the garage doors that kind of open where you'd have like an inside space, but also be outside. So I don't know if that's something that, would, space wise or whatever would work, but is also a way to get some open, closed space. But just a thought, food for thought.
Yeah, that's a great comment. One thing I'd follow up with real quickly here is that I think one of the ways we will get to the exterior expression that you're expecting, and what I'm hearing here is to look for ways to kind of break down some scale and really integrate it into the rest of the park better. So some smaller things like those, like some reasonable overhangs, maybe not making as big a move with a gable end where somebody, it looks like we're looking for a naming right or sponsorship for a sign on the building. Those are all moves that we can make and explore. So I appreciate
All
that.
right, thank you. All right. Any other questions or comments from the board? If not,
I guess
yeah.
my question is,
He's not done.
based on the discussion that we had a couple weeks ago, as well as our goal tonight to talk about the park, is the board comfortable with, you're going to move ahead with starting to order this playground equipment? Or are we going to be, when Jim comes forward and says, we need to spend X on playground equipment, are we going to now have to look at every piece, or are we going to just say, go for it?
The answer is just go for it. I'm just kidding.
I know.
Well, I'm hoping,
I think of them.
I mean, maybe there's some,
Trust me, I'll get it exactly right.
Yeah.
maybe there's some specific pictures you can show us or something in a packet so that we know what it is.
And this is the conversation we want to have. Based on where we're at, we're still planning a March letting, and this is why we wanted to kind of back up a little bit and do this tonight. So we're comfortable with where we're going with this. I guess we're going to have to make some tracks to stay on schedule to draw out, what, if this isn't the building, we're going to have to figure out what building you as a group are envisioning and put it on paper. And if there is a pavilion, if it's determined that we're going to change course there, we have to make tracks to get to what is it we're going to do fairly quickly, or as Trustee Boothart said, take our time, to do it. But I do feel a certain amount of urgency, to deliver this thing. We've been talking about it, delivery in spring of 24. I think it's going to be challenging based on some of these lead times, but this process, I think, has gone fairly smoothly until like the last meeting where there was, big pullback on an element that was included, from the get-go, essentially. So I want to avoid as much of that as possible where we are hashing every little thing out, like this. That will slow things down. But it's ultimately your project. You're the trustees, the board of trustees, and you have to be comfortable with both the amount. I get the comment. I wish I would have never thrown out a number. When we first applied for a grant, probably 2.5, 3 years ago, I did throw out a $7 million number. That was a guess. Right now we're at 11.1 thereabouts is the estimate for this. We're going to look for any way we can to cut costs to that point. We're not trying to hit we're not trying to drive the cost up at all. I think everybody here is very cognizant of the fact that there's a lot of needs and not a whole lot of money. So I'm certainly going to look for any opportunity to bring this in, at a lower number. But it's challenging. Building costs I was hearing numbers like 500 a square foot, to where a couple of years ago that was 200 a square foot. So building costs have gone the wrong direction for us. But still, we're on a journey together, and we gotta figure out how we're gonna get across the finish line. So it's a great question. You can have as much involvement as you like. I suggest, maybe at a quarterly meeting, or we designate a meeting and we workshop some things to keep this on track, and get people comfortable. We may need to do that. As I said, I was a little surprised at the last meeting where, the pavilion structure I think a comment was made, I've never seen that before. Well, it's, it was in all the things. So it's that kind of disconnect that I think worries me a little bit, where the design team, and you're looking at probably, not even a quarter of the design team. Mike has several engineers behind him working on this. Andy has several architects, MEPs, which are mechanical, electrical, and plumbing engineers behind him. Kevin has several landscape, so there's a lot of people working on this. This is getting real now. So it's exciting, but it's also, what is the right thing? We're invested in this I was doing some quick math, between property acquisition and design. We're about 1.3 into this as far as what we've spent. We've got 600 back already through the grant from the SMC. So we've already started to get some reimbursement coming back, which is great. But I think the exercise tonight spurred on a lot of great comments. Sounds like we have to go back to the drawing board, but we also have to come to a place where we are progressing as a team to get this where it needs to be, where you're comfortable, you like the look, and all of that. So I thought we were closer than I think we are at this point in time. It seems like we almost have to go back, do a little more design development here. That was really at the point, when we approved, by resolution, design development, that was, in my mind, we were saying yes to these elements. And now we're really not, maybe not to look at the building. It's unfair for me to say that because you haven't seen it before, but certainly the pavilion. So, if that's not it, we just have to figure out what are we going for here? Which direction are we going to roll?
Trustee Pierce had his hand up first.
Yeah, well, Jim, as he certainly knows, because he's been here almost as long as I have. He has a little less white hair, but almost. He's probably going to have some soon. Antioch tends to be an argumentative town that wants to discuss everything ad nauseum sometimes.
Hadn't noticed.
But when it comes to this, you used the word collaborative and team. We're part of the team too, and we need to have some input on this. You don't know what to design unless we tell you what to design. But at the same time, we have to trust what the designers are coming up with for like the water feature and the general layout, the pavilions area and the stuff like that. We have to have some trust in the general process they're following and what they're going to provide us, because that's what we're paying them for. But at the same time, the major features and all the stuff, the whole picture is what we're held accountable for. So unless we have the opportunity to look at it, all the major things and all the parts of this and see what the bids are, we're not going to be comfortable, and we're not going to go out and say, hold us accountable for something we're not even comfortable with. So you're right. We have to move forward, but we have to do it as a team. We have to understand we're going to have inputs, you're going to have inputs, and hopefully at some point we'll come to the right thing. And if it takes a little bit longer, it takes a little bit longer. But we're going to get to the right thing in the end. But
I think it's a great comment. And I guess my question would be, what can we do as a design team, or what can I do to get, I've circulated a cost estimate, that had the, basically the program budget here. Do you want to see that again? Do you want to, what can we give you in terms of demonstrations, exhibits, to help you get to where we need to be?
So personally, I plan on keeping this item on every cow agenda or board meeting from now until bids go out to contractors. Okay. And also until we have that phase that we are going to, this will be our only topic at quarterly meetings. So we have a consensus, and we're like you said, that we have the RFQ out there, getting general contractor bids. So I plan on literally keeping this on every agenda to get to the point where we can get shovels in the ground.
I got a question for the attorney.
All right, we'll go, yeah, we'll go here and then here, then we'll go down one more time. Yep.
So can he send out prior to the meetings tweeners, let's call them tweeners, informational emails to every board member, just to keep us updated?
Yeah, you could, yeah, thank you. Sorry, I was looking up something about the village. Yeah, as long as it is not,
Then we're not taking action, we're just
Right,
giving
it-
us information, a bulletin.
and it's very clear that there is no intent to create a conversation even electronically,
Correct.
but just to give feedback, and then feedback can be channeled individually from one person to a contact, probably our village administrator. I don't see a problem with
Yeah, I
that. I want to think about it, but I don't see. a
I
problem.
think that's what we need,
Yeah,
some tweeners. Some
Good
tweeners,
question.
Some communication tweeners between meetings.
So Brent, Katrina, Mary, and then we'll see if there's anything else. And
You know, being relatively new to the board and not knowing how you've done these big, larger projects in the past. As far as I'm concerned, we are making a ton of progress. We have the funds available for this project. We have a design available for this project. There's a lot of work that can be done that we all agree upon, which is really the hard part of it, which is gonna be the creek work, getting the grounds ready, everything else ready to go. All we're talking about are those final elements that are gonna be built up on a site. Now, I know a lot of them have lead times and everything else, but I guess where I'd like to see us go is when you do have these, like for the playground, when that's available to us, present it to us in whatever format that is, whether it's at a cow, whether it's, we have to vote to order the item. But I'd like to see that information, but then give us the chance, so that we're seeing those budget numbers, seeing everything else, so that we know if we have to start making hard decisions, where we can make those decisions. We can't make them based on just getting one item and saying, this is what our option. During this process, I heard a lot of, these are placeholders. This is a rough estimate of the budget. This is this. And I understand we have a budget for it, but there's a pavilion, there's a gazebo, there's a this, and we saw some pictures, but I don't feel comfortable just going off that. I want to see the final artwork. Like when we were given that gazebo presentation or the pavilion presentation at the last meeting, we didn't even have the drawings or a picture of what we're actually getting, that we were being asked to vote for $500,000 for a pavilion. So that I don't want to see happen again. We can't have that. We have to know what we're approving. Then you might not have as much questioning and everything else. If we see exactly what we're getting and for what that dollar is, then we can make decisions because we're the ones that are going to be held accountable at the end of the day. And when that park's done, I want it to look incredible. I want to be able to go out and tell anyone in this town that this is what we did, this is why we did it, whatever that cost it. If it's 12 million, 10 million, 20 million.
So let me ask this question. Today you saw the splash pad, the water element. Do you need more detail than that?
How much is it?
$700,000.
Okay.
The-
That's more detail. We didn't have that up until just.
Yeah, I mean, let's.
Well, that's what I'm talking about.
Let's
We
have a
haven't
little.
seen those numbers.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess that's why I'm offering to circulate the project budget again, because when we approved design development, that project budget had a $700-something thousand placeholder for the water feature, but maybe you guys, it's a lot of fine print. There's a lot of line items. I can just run through them quickly. The pavilion was scheduled at 500.
No, that's, let me stop. That's not what I'm talking about. We had placeholders in that budget that were not based on any one selection. Those were numbers you guys put in there for those items. Now you're selecting items and then just saying, oh, it fits within the budget, approve it. That isn't going to fly. We want to see what we're getting for that money and give us options. Value engineer it. Tell us this is what we could fit under the budget. If you're going to look for a car or Dennis is going to look for a new truck, and we say you have $200,000 in the budget, he doesn't go, just give me a $200,000 truck. He says, I can get this one for this, I can get this one for this, and then he picks. We're not getting that option. At least I understand we have to make some early decisions to get stuff ahead of time. But right now, we're not getting options of what we want to do. We're not being told this gazebo in this style, which is very basic or plain, is 150,000. We can get it in 6 months. This gazebo is 500,000 and it's going to take a year. Give us those options so we can make an educated decision. Without those options, we're just flipping a coin and saying, leaving it 100% up to you guys to decide what goes in that park.
Okay.
And I don't think the people that elected us want us to give that all to you. That should fall on us to approve or give you guidance on what we want, but we need some give and take on what you guys are doing, not just
Okay.
a final option.
Okay. I understand, and I hope we can get that level of detail. I don't know if any of you want to speak to that, but
I mean, there's only about 3 or 4 major objects. We're not talking about detail on which tree is going in which location. At least I'm not. I'm talking about the building, the bridge, the gazebo, the water feature. That's it. Everything else, I think everyone agrees and likes the plan you have. It's just right now we're all on
yeah,
different
and that's
levels on
kind
it
of
right
what I
now.
want to get to is which items are we good with, where we can say, okay, let's put that, let's take that to final design, detail it out, and which items are we not there yet? You've seen a depiction of a pavilion, a splash pad, a bridge, a building, got good comment on the building, and now a playground. Playground's $1 million. Now, are we going to get a more detailed version of, I mean, were we planning to provide more detailed versions of this stuff?
I can provide, like, it's construction document level at that point, right? Like, so you start talking about, like, we try to depict the pictures of what we're choosing for the playground. And then we take those things and it's a black and white drawing, right? So it's got the specifications of those things that we're choosing. So I guess from that standpoint, we can provide it if you feel comfortable kind of looking at that level. I feel like most people generally understand the playground stuff when they see the pictures and like, oh yes, yep, the net spinny thing. My kids have played on that. I love it. Or those kind of things. So that was the best way I could think of to depict the playground. I mean, we've talked about pavilion, and we'll come back and show that. So those different options with costs. The splash pad feature, I can send you guys the kind of animation. Those are the kind of things that you can see how the water would look, and that may be beyond what we were able to represent in just a still image. The bridge, I think, you can see that in the render. I mean, we've shown you an elevation. It's in the 3D model, like how we depict it.
So is that bridge?
Yeah.
Final bridge.
Yeah. And then we take that and we do an elevation so that we can dimension it out. And here's the arc of it, and here's the coping.
You just proved my point, though, because look in the back. What is that in the back? Is that part of the concession stand?
Yeah.
It doesn't look like the concession stand we just saw.
Because
So how are we supposed to know what item in that drawing is legitimately what we're buying and which one is a rendering of what might come? Unless we know when you actually bring this stuff to us to purchase and spend and put our name on a thing for 500,000, that we know that's what we're getting. That's what I'm asking for. I want to know what we are paying for and what we are getting, not just, it's going to be like the render.
Well, we brought the architect on a little late. We had that in the rendering because we wanted to show a form, a mass, that this element was there. And then we wanted to bring Andy in tonight to be able to present, like,
And this
here's
has
what-
been perfect. And this is what we should have been doing from the beginning. And this is what we need to do moving forward. And then we will all come to a consensus on what features we all agree on, or we don't all agree on, but at least the majority of the board agrees on. And then we can move forward. But I mean, that's what I think needs to happen. I don't know how we can all make decisions and then back it up later when we don't have all the information. So.
Thank you.
Just, it's good.
Trustee, well, I'll come back around more to Katrina, Mary, and then I'll come back around here.
The reason I asked the question is because I think we need to balance that. We have to be able to justify the decisions that are being made, but we also can't, and I'm not suggesting that we're doing this. I'm concerned that we could go down that path of having to look at every little detail and we'll never get anything done. I think we also as a board have to realize that not all of us are going to agree on the final design. And I said this to somebody the other day. I don't like that bridge. That's not the bridge I picked. Am I going to sit here and complain about the bridge? No, the bridge has been selected because the majority of the board decided that that's the bridge that they wanted. So I think we just have to be cognizant of the fact that as we go through this process and look at these big ticket items, that we're going to have to at some point fish or cut bait, because otherwise we could sit here for the next 6 months talking about, a feature of a feature. In terms of the playground, the reason I brought that up is, you showed a lot of pictures. I think part of the challenge too is because that screen is so far back and it's hard to see. But yeah, and in the future, maybe if we could have it on our laptops, that would be great. But anyway, that's another story. But perhaps a list of all those playground items, pictures of them, so that we can understand the costs associated with that. To me, that's easy peasy. I'm willing to come to any meeting that's set up especially to talk about this so that we can continue to push forward on it.
We're gonna do our darndest to try to get you where you're comfortable. Somewhere I think we somehow, or I failed. If you're making comments that, you weren't really, like, when I look at this picture, that's the pavilion that was selected by at least 4 of you. So, I can show you a cut sheet of, from Neary, which kind of shows, it's a drawing, it's a 2D drawing. But when we show this and approve this, that's what, this is a pretty detailed drawing. I mean, the building was a placeholder. I get where you're coming from on that, because the splash pad was a placeholder and playground was a placeholder, but now we're getting to a point where they're not going to be anymore. And I'm trying to figure out what level of detail, how much are we going to have.
Everyone said it, the major items,
But
the building, the gazebo, the bridge has been decided, it appears, and then I guess the splash pad, that's it.
But here's my question about the splash pad, because I love the splash pad. I think the way you describe the splash pad is amazing. What else do we as a board need? I don't feel like I need anything else for that. I feel like let's go forward on the splash pad, because that's something that is really, to me, even more exciting. And I wasn't even a big fan of splash pad in the first place, but that to me is the more exciting part of this than some of these other elements. But what as a board do we want them to give us so they know that we're comfortable with what they're presenting? That's where I'm struggling. Especially
I have been very clear. I want what they're
you
presenting.
wanna
I
see
want the
photos
actual,
of the bricks, you want to see the.
I want to see what we're buying. I'm not going to buy a car without seeing it. I'm not going to buy a $500,000.
But the only
But
way
wait a
they're
minute.
going to actually see it.
But there it is. I mean, I guess
No, I understand that. But once again, we got this last week, and you heard the majority of the board then, I didn't like that design. So, and once again, maybe that's our fault. We saw these pictures, but then you'd send us a picture with 5 of them, like in that one, and then we
Yeah,
did
I
this one, and there was
apologize.
a rendering
I apologize.
and everything else. So it was very confusing.
I
So all I'm saying is, and at the end of the day, you might show us the water pad and we all go, great, and we'll approve it in a heartbeat and it's done.
But
and we
they
move
showed it
forward.
to us. That's where I'm.
I know, but
struggling.
we didn't know the price tonight. We don't know anything else about it. I'm just saying, I'm not complaining about the water pad. The water feature looked great.
I'm not saying you're complaining. I'm asking the board. For me, I'm ready to say, you know what, go on the splash pad. How do we get to that point as a board?
They
Give
bring,
them that
they bring us the different items. They show us like they did tonight with the things. We make our comments, and if we all are in consensus, they bring it to the next board meeting, we approve it. It's done.
But they did just show it to us.
Well, then fine, they could bring the splash pad to the next meeting.
So let me
That's the process. I mean,
let me ask Jim a question on this too, timing wise. Okay, Jim. So we're at 75% design build. Okay. And we can't do anything until we put it out for general contractors to start the project. We're dead in the water until then. Correct? No pun
It would be
intended, I guess.
a different approach to let this thing as anything but a general contract. So like letting separate bid packages out would be a major departure from the course we're on.
Okay. So I'm just thinking in real time. That's again why I'm going to keep this on here. So basically what I'm understanding is we're going to be doing this every cow meeting or board meeting until we get to a point where we say, Jim, here's your here's your number, here's your design, here's your numbers, put this out to bid for a general contractor. I think at that point, that's when we're done, right? I mean, at that point, we're basically,
You're not, you have to award. I think once we award,
Mhm.
you're done.
right.
Okay, you could, it would be a catastrophe, in my opinion, if we put it out to bid and didn't award, but technically you're not obligated to spend any money until you award a contract.
So hypothetically, I'm saying in April, and we know it snows in April here, in April, May, we want work commencing on this project.
That's
Okay.
what I've heard, yes.
So we have now, nothing's out right now. If we had something together for a bid package between now and the end of February, what's the time frame for that, for us to get that back? It's like the general contractors will take another, they have 30 days to submit the bids, and then we have another 30 days to pick it. What is the timeline on that? Because I don't want to be, into June or July.
Good evening, Mike
Oh,
Jansen.
sure you wanna go up there?
So it's my chance to speak, I guess. So, thank you for the opportunity to be here. So, Mr. Mayor, if you just clarify your question, could we put out an early bid package?
No, I don't want to do that. I'm just saying, if we say we're pushing this quarterly meeting, village board meetings, and we're saying, hey, this is a go, everything's a go. And we say that goes out we approve the final plan at the 2nd February meeting, whatever date that is. By the time we get the bid packet out, have time to have the bid sent back, and then award a contract, what are we talking about? Are we talking about 30 days, 60 days, 6 months? Because like I said, my goal is to see this start commencing in, I'm going to say April, May, that time frame, like no later than.
The current schedule we were working off of was to send this out for bids in March.
Okay.
And then about 60 days, sometime in May, we thought that then would be a likely timeframe that the contractor could start construction.
Okay.
if Bids were accepted. So that's just give you a frame of reference,
Sure.
just kind of move that
Okay.
forward, then I would say.
So I will openly say my goal is to get this wrapped up no later than the 2nd February meeting, so that we have something to send out. So whether we have 6-hour Saturday meeting for a quarterly meeting, or a Zoom meeting, or we're here till midnight one night in February, I just want to get this thing knocked out. So yeah.
But when you make decisions, some of this detailed design work still has to occur.
Sure.
So
Okay.
if you're making decisions in end of February, that doesn't mean necessarily the bid is
Got
at 100% ready to
Sure.
bid March.
Okay. And then I'm just summarizing. So for me, I agree, like, the creek, the layout of the grass, the walkways that go up to Main Street, like those things are, done, approved in my, I guess, observation or opinion. I see the, pavilion, the building, the park equipment, I say the park equipment, including the splash pad and the bridge, not even the bridge. The bridge seems to be approved. I think those three items are the ones that I think the board is looking for a final, okay, we're ready to go. So if we have everything and those 3 boxes to check between now and then, let's just check those 3 boxes and move forward. If that's kind of my understanding, right?
I don't have a problem with that, but I'm not gonna, without seeing it,
No.
agree to the.
No, I agree. And then
I'm
we're
not
gonna,
gonna vote on something just to
no,
get it done.
and we're gonna have a final packet with, these
Yeah.
are the actual numbers. Yeah.
So do you feel like you have what you need from us to?
I think I'm almost there. I get a little confused when I need to see it when we're showing, that there it is.
Yeah.
You keep saying, let's see it.
Yeah, but you showed us that.
All right. I'm
Hold on,
sorry,
hold on,
Brent.
hold on, Scott. Well, I'll let Scott and Ed. I haven't looked on the right side here.
No, you haven't looked over here in a while. We keep getting
Okay.
cut off. When I went and bought a car, I put 600 miles on my car to buy a new car. Because I went and looked and I priced it and I looked at other cars, I compared. If I go into a car dealer and I want to buy a sports car and he rolls out the $120,000 Corvette, and I'm like, yeah, that looks really nice. I like that. But I also want to see what the Camaro looks like, the top end Camaro. I want to see what the bottom end Camaro looks like. I want to compare all those and get the prices on them.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the splash pad, I love the idea of the splash pad. And I understand it's gonna cost money because you got piping, you got plumbing, you got electronics, you got computers running, it, you
Lighting.
got lighting, you got everything there. So I know it's gonna cost money. But I want to know, okay, we're getting a splash pad. This is the approximate cost of the splash pad. We get a pavilion. This is the approximate cost of the pavilion. And these are comparison pavilions so that I can see whether I'm getting the Maserati thrown in front of me or if I'm getting the Corvette or the Camaro, what I'm getting thrown in front of me. Yes, these are great drawings, but they don't give me the cost of the items. And I have to be able to sit there and compare the items, say, is this $700,000 water pad what it is? Or is there a $800,000 water pad that really blows everybody's socks off? Or is there a $600,000 one that we can afford? That is what I need to know in this, the cost comparison of the main items. Park, it's a great looking park with the drawings I've seen. But to put a diagram in front of me, that gazebo right there looks nothing like the gazebo in the Gideon Road Park. That looks like it has a solid roof on it. It's got a little frilly metals around the top and it's got legs on it. So you go down to the Wills Gideon Park and the gazebo is 28 steps across. And I don't know how many steps across that one is, but I bet it's not 28 steps. And there's no lighting around it. So it's not the same thing. I don't have the cost basis. It's not a true comparison. So I want to see as Brent says, I want to see what I'm buying and what the cost comparison is. I'm not going to buy a Corvette unless I have a damn good reason to.
Okay.
And or otherwise my wife is going to cut my throat.
I'm glad you said.
You know, so
Okay.
I
Do you think we got enough? We know what to do, you think?
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Ed?
And I want to say one
Okay.
more thing. I just want to say one more thing. So the mayor's timeline, the timeline should be when it's right. Not can we get it done in 2 months? Not can we get it done in 6 months? Not can we get it in a year and a half or 2 years? The timeline should be when this is right.
Yeah, I know, I can appreciate that. I just want to make sure that we approach it with, urgency to get it right. But again, like I said, if we have to talk about it ad nauseum, we'll just make sure we spend the time to get it right.
I love talking that much.
Ed, do you have anything?
Yeah. So I agree with what Brent and Scott said. The only thing, the detail is I just want to make sure ISO compliant. If we're gonna make a park, that we're making a safe park, that we're not putting wood chips down. Because that's part of the detail we don't know. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. That was the number
that-
one comment from some of the folks I talked to about the park. No wood chips because
Right.
nobody can navigate if they have balance issues or in a chair or something. They can't navigate on wood chips or
and
mothers
that
can't
we're putting
navigate. on
rubber
wood chips.
down, putting rubber
a
down.
rubberized
we're putting the ISO, so we don't have loss control comes in with the village's insurance, and all of a sudden they go, "What the heck is that?
No,
You got to take that out and put rubber down."
yeah, no, it's all rubberized surfacing.
All right. Anybody else?
There's a quick construction question, and I don't know if you can answer. The majority of the work, the creek opening and everything, the groundwork for the project. Can that not be bid out and started, or is it, your bid's gonna have everything in it, the gazebo, you name it? I mean, I mean, with the desire to get construction going, I'm just saying there's a lot of things everyone agrees on and all that has to be done before we even start constructing a pavilion on that spot. I'm just wondering if I don't want to hold up everything over a design issue on the building. Everyone knows we want those features in the building. They're just not happy with maybe the outside look of it or something else. I mean, can we not get the ball rolling and then make those changes as we go?
It's more difficult than it would seem because you can't completely segregate out the creek bed from the sewer main that's running through it, from the electrical work that's going to be happening running back to the building. You know, it's these things tie together and are intertwined. They're not as easy to extract an element out and build it independently as you might think.
All right. Well, thank you for all the comments.
This was very honest. We had to have this discussion. It was very helpful, you know, to have this discussion because it's our desire to deliver something that you're very, very proud of at the end of the day. And we're just going to keep march it along until we get there. So I appreciate everybody's comments. They're all good comments.
All right, thank you. All right. Well, moving along, I gotta find my agenda. Wow. All right, so we have two other items on the cow. And just so everybody knows, Mr. Garrigan, Michael Garrigan is not here tonight to present. His mom is not in great health, so
I'll make a motion to table. It's his item. It's his item.
both items or one item?
Let's just do both items. They're his items. Because it's, in all due respect, you know,
I would
I want to make a motion that he should be here to hear both items. They're his items. They're his, he's the author of them.
could we consider tabling the business licensing use one and doing the solar one? Because I think there's maybe some urgency with the
Yeah,
planning and zoning.
just the business license. I want that, yeah, because that's been brought up under Mayor Scheinfleur. So yeah, that one I want definitely
Okay.
tabled for Michael Garrigan.
Okay, so we have a motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, so we have a motion to table the business use licensing discussion until Michael's available, and a second by Trustee Bluthart. Any discussion? All right, if not, roll call, please.
Pierce.
Aye.
Yes.
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 5 voting yes, motion carries. All right, item number 4 on the agenda, discussion regarding solar systems. This is an item that there was a petition before the Planning and Zoning Board about this. The commissioner on that board, Andy Turner, is in this business, so he had a lot of good comments that evening. And one of the items that was brought up is we should be looking at an ordinance first if we want to do this, so people can apply and fit within our ordinance. The mayor of Round Lake Beach at a lunch told me they did have an ordinance which was included by Michael. Probably doesn't have all the detail and specs that I was expecting, a lot of generalities, but I just wanted to, I guess, get the temperature of the board regarding, A, do we want these type of things in the village? And B, if we do, what kind of parameters do we want in an ordinance? And so I will tell you one of mine that I saw in here and that came up was, I think there needs to be more of a cost or a fee or a bond for a decommissioning of one of these things. If they, go out of business or, shut down, I don't want to be dealing with having a village deal with so I didn't think the language of the ordinance was tough enough for that. But if you saw in the packet, there was a lot of detail, and this related actually to residential and commercial solar panels or farms. So Administrator Keim in place of Mr. Garrigan.
Okay, so there was a conceptual petition presented. It's likely to come back, a solar farm at North and Deep Lake on the southeast corner is likely to come back in the very near future, a large scale solar farm. So I think it's a very good idea that we do have an ordinance in place. So we have some standards to make decisions about that from. I had a chance to read the memo and read the ordinance. I agree with the mayor. There are some generalities that will be difficult to enforce in that ordinance as written. So I think we're going to have to do some wordsmithing ourselves. Probably the most concerning part about it to me is, there's a provision that says something to the effect that the proposed solar SES, they call them SESs, doesn't detract from or create some kind of an eyesore from any adjacent property. So I'm having trouble reconciling that aspect to it. If somebody put up a solar farm next to me and I could see it, to me it would detract from my property. But the way that was written, there's probably no solar farm ever that would get approved, because unless you think they're beautiful and they increase your property value. I'm a little concerned about the environmental aspect of what they may do. Let's say this thing's adjacent to Red Wing Slough, a state natural preserve. Does the glare or the reflection of it impact and have environmental impacts on migratory birds? Or, that's the kind of stuff that I think we need to wrestle with a little bit and be very careful with. The provision of, there is a provision here, they have to get decommissioned. in a certain time frame once they're dysfunctional or whatever. But this ordinance only gives us the ability to lien the, do it ourselves if we so choose, and then lien the property. So, maybe something like a bond or letter of credit or something like that may be useful in that, but it would have to be a long-term instrument. Typically bonds are not 20, 30-year instruments. So we'd have to find the right tool for that. But this would essentially give you some standards. If somebody installed, and they are being currently installed on residential, you see them more and more as you drive around everywhere. Can't be more than 10 feet higher than I thought that was kind of generous, 10 feet above the roof line. That is a lot of, that could be viewed as obtrusive somehow. So I think we need some work on it. You can read the ordinance. We don't have to go into great detail. But I think it's a necessary discussion to get an ordinance in place.
Let me ask you a question, Jim. I should know this because I was on planning and zoning too. Should this ordinance or proposed ordinance be going to planning and zoning to review as well, like to give feedback based on, even prior to us in this regard?
It's not a horrible idea, but you will slow this down.
Okay.
And I think there is some urgency to this. There's no reason why we can't circulate it to planning and zoning, get their comment individually.
Sure.
Right. I mean,
this side?
Just real quickly, I think industrial or commercial SESs would fall well underneath this. As a homeowner, I'd be upset if I had a commercial supplier of this set up to come install it and, on the top of my house. I understand that I had to get a permit from the village, but I don't think I'd want to be required to put bonds in place and plans to remove it when I sell my house or whatever, when it needs to be decommissioned. So I think this needs to be light on the residential side and heavier on the commercial side. And that's all I'll say.
I agree. Trustee Basic?
I read this and I'm just worried about the AOCs of the worlds are going that direction, that we wouldn't be the village of Antioch versus the Green Deal team, and they would have a bag of money fighting us. That's what I'd be concerned about. So we write this nice piece of paper, got these rules and regulations, we got an ordinance, and all of a sudden we're battling to keep our rules and regulations. That's the only thing that fears me down the road, is everything's going electric, everything's going that way. How you get to power the infrastructure, windmills, where's those going to go? California's running it. They're doing brownouts. So I just don't, that's my worry on this whole thing. I understand what everybody's saying, but I don't want to be behind a lawsuit with people that have millions and millions of dollars.
Trustee Luthardt?
Question first and then a couple comments. Do we know if we have any residences with solar systems in place?
we definitely do.
Yeah.
Do we have any, have they needed permits in the past in Antioch or anything in regards to getting them installed, or is it just kind of like
I think they get
a satellite thing that someone can throw on their roof? Or
we basically do an electrical inspection, to make sure that it's, is safe, meets electrical code. That's about it. There's no aesthetic code to it.
my comments are this, is that, I think solar is going to become popular down the road, maybe not in the next few years, but I think we need to be ahead of the game in regards to ordinances. I think the business side, the farm side needs to be a standalone ordinance versus the residential side. I think there needs to be or it could be built into the same ordinance, but need to be a big differential between the two. You can't treat them the same. Because I don't know how you would get a homeowner to tell you his solar system wasn't working within 30 days. And then how would you even know it wasn't working? You wouldn't. So I think there needs to be a difference between the two. But I think we need to work on this and get ahead of it. Yes. And and I know we're not discussing the solar farm today. I mean, that's close to my house, but I've seen those in other areas of the country. I mean, I don't have an issue with that, but I think we need to do all the environmental studies. Everything needs to be in place, which we're not in a position to do. So we need to know what needs to be done and who needs to do it. And we need to have that in writing in our ordinances so that we're prepared for something like
Thank you. Trustee Berman?
I just have one quick question. So when they're installing these solar panels, does it require them tapping into the main breaker panel?
I honestly don't know.
I was just curious because
This
Yeah,
has a lot of language about complying with ANSI and UL and, commercially reasonable, practices and things like that. There's verbiage like this in here, but I don't have,
doesn't go any, yeah.
I don't have any specifics. I don't have a proposal like of what this exact installation, like the
They're similar to generators in a sense. They can kick in and then they have, I don't know what the technical term is, switches that when the house is drawing more power, they can draw from the grid. When the house isn't using enough power, then they sell it back to the grid. So I don't know how that works. But the houses have all that built in when their systems are done properly, but I don't know how it works.
We sat through Paul Greed was there, a long presentation, and I'll spare you from that presentation right now. But yeah, it's a lot of detail about when it's turned on and peak times and things about that nature. Just
I do have one, I'm sorry.
yeah, no, yeah, and then
And then I guess, because if you're looking into this, if you happen to look into that part too, but do you, and maybe this might be a stupid question, but do you know, is it a licensed electrician that would be assisting with the installations?
Yeah, absolutely. It would.
Okay, I just want to.
Yeah.
All right.
Trustee Dominiac?
I agree with trustee Bluthart. I would think that an option for us, if timing is an issue on the commercial side, that we take the residential part and make that a separate ordinance, or go back and amend it later, but let's not get into the weeds on the residential if the real issue is.
Sure.
If there's a presentation, I really don't know what the pros and cons are about this. You said Andy's in the, if there was a presentation at Plan and Zoning, I'd love to see that. I don't know how to respond to this ordinance.
Sure.
I don't know anything about solar farms,
and-
and I can go and Google it, but if there's something that you have, I would.
So I will tell you that and I think at the end of the day, we'll be asking Jimmy to either go through his Rolodex of what he has for other villages or look at a couple. And I agree, the commercial is the one that's coming, although I don't think they're on the planning and zoning according to what Michael said for this next meeting.
I don't think so.
As
no.
of yet. Okay. But it was a cost benefit question in my mind. I was surprised that a structure this size, they were saying what estimated would give energy for up to 500 homes, which would be 1,500 people. But again, a good question was asked, well, who are those people? They're not generally from Antioch. They could be anywhere on the ComEd power system. And also, what if Walmart or somebody is the one to sign up? Then guess what? Are there still 500 homes or people that are getting that benefit? That was a question that was kind of left unanswered. So there are a lot of, cost benefit analysis and, where that if that benefit going to go to the residents, great. If it's going to go to somebody making money, then that's a different consideration.
I think when it goes to
Planning
the
and
grid,
zoning is recorded, right?
Yeah.
So I can go back. and
Yeah.
look at that. All right, I'll go back.
and I think when it goes to the grid, there's no way to track where it goes.
No,
No, and
just like your electricity, you don't know where it comes from.
All
I
right.
think
So,
the county's running one at Grace Lake aren't they?
well, there's one, I guess I learned at this meeting, there's one already in maybe the gravel pit at Thielen. So we might be able to get some information on that one that's been.
Stance on it?
I honestly, you know what? I need to do my own research.
Sure.
Yeah,
I'm in the same boat you're
Yeah,
in.
so Thielen does have one. So what they're Fox Lake over there? Is that considered
Mhm.
Fox Lake?
That might be Farm Bureau might have a stance on it.
I'll have Jimmy looking at that, but let's focus on the commercial aspect of this and keep it moving forward. So when they come back to planning and zoning, we can have some parameters to give them. All right. Any other business? I did forget to mention earlier, Trustee Peterson has had a heck of a 6 months. Florence Peterson, her mother-in-law, passed away. So I know there's services this weekend for her on Saturday morning, I think from 10 to 12 at St. Raphael's, with the funeral to immediately after at noon. So I forgot to mention that earlier. And again, our condolences to the Peterson family. And again, Trustee Peterson, who yesterday was her birthday as well. So that probably was a very good
Yeah,
birthday
feel
weekend. All right. Now we have, where are we at here? We,
Other business.
other business, any other business anyone wants to talk about? If not, do we have any, requests for executive
I
session?
do. I want to continue last week's meeting.
All right, so we have, in which, on which topic?
That's personnel.
All right, we have a request for, executive session on personnel.
I'd like it for, property.
We have a, we have one for, property acquisition. Do we have a, motion and a second to go into executive session with no further business to take place after?
Or property acquisition and person.
Okay, so we have a motion, trustee Dominiac, second trustee Bluthart, roll call, please.
Pierce,
Aye.
Mason,
Yes.
Luther,
Yes.
Berman,
Yes.
Yes.
5 voting yes, motion carries. We're in executive session with no further business afterwards.